Hello everyone, I'm Batuhan from Mobidictum. Today I have founder and CEO of Mad Crusader, Yarr Rash, and they develop a new original entertainment IPs using their own framework. He has been in the industry for almost 20 years. He worked in Sony, EA, Rambler, Wargaming, and now he's running his own studio. He lives in Barcelona. We will have a great talk about IP development today. Welcome, Yarr.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining. So, almost 2 decades of industry experience. How did you start your career?
As a matter of fact, it was a pure accident. If anyone is interested, it was back in 2006 or something like that. So I never thought that working in games is an actual job. I thought it's a privilege of people who don't need to think about money. Like if you have everything handled in your life, you can have fun developing games. But to my surprise, at some point in time, I stumbled upon the job posting for what turned out to be a position of a marketing manager for Sony Online Entertainment portfolio in Russia and CIS, games like EverQuest and PlanetSide and Pirates of the Burning Sea. And I went to the interview and never left games industry since that moment.
And what year was that?
It was 2007, I guess, or 2006, somewhere there. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Before that, I did a bit of journalism, music promotion, organizing music festivals and concerts, and different types of like cultural events for basically culture, science, how you call it, humanities, social projects. It was called back then. So, and then I entered. I had a great deal of experience in organizing stuff and promoting stuff. Basically, self-learned, even though like I have a higher education degree, a master's degree in international law, but never did it seriously. Always was attracted by entertainment industry. Yeah. And so then I found my way to the games industry. And, the games industry, even now, but also back then, it used to be, let's say, a melting pot of, different professions because we didn't have any universities or schools back then. We still honestly don't have a lot of like educational facilities or programs for games, and that's an interesting topic to cover later. But what games industry used to be, and it kind of is at the moment, it attracts a lot of people from different industries, makes them fall in love with games, and kind of absorbs their experience from different industries. And like if you're good in something, there used to be a high chance that you will find your way in the games industry just by bringing this expertise to the table. That's what happened to me. And after that, I continued in the marketing and PR direction, and then switched to building media projects and like user-generated content platforms for gamers, for people who like from promoting games to building something for people who love games, for gamers. Right, spent several years there. We've built a huge media outlet with user-generated content and editorial part and everything, and digital distribution platform for games. And after that, I joined Wargaming, worked on Wargaming platform, which is a huge thing you can imagine. You need to publish Wargaming portfolio on all continents, in all time zones, for like 30 something languages, needs to be supported. And so there are a lot of aspects to that. I also being product director, publishing and marketing director for the third-party publishing portfolio of Wargaming. And then, so that was kind of the journey from marketing and PR to basically brand management and product management type of thing. And that's where I encountered the topic of and the importance of IP for the entertainment industry.
Okay, that happened on Wargaming then. That the importance of IP.
Yeah, well, you can say so, yeah, because before that I interacted with a lot of gaming IPs before that as a marketer promoting, well, different types of games and different game brands. But Wargaming gave a perspective of like, because World of Tanks franchise alone it's a huge enterprise, right?
Mhm.
So that would be your, like, in some sense, a model for how IP looks like, how you deal with it, right? How you manage it. So I think that was the hands-on experience from within in terms of how IPs work in entertainment industry. And I'm not saying just only in games industry, because World of Tanks IP used to be, like everywhere.
Mhm.
Music, interactive entertainment games, all kinds of things, and different types of games, mobile, console, PC, even tabletop, World of Tanks,
Yeah.
Monopoly, things of that nature.
I played as well, and I don't play many games anymore. So that's if it. I mean, it's funny that I run Mobidictum, but I don't play that much game. So, but it's a great game. Obviously, there are millions of players.
Well, I'm pretty
Uh,
sure that you have some games that you play a lot, right? Like maybe not a
GTA.
lot of them, but maybe you have some. GTA, yeah.
GTA. But that's another podcast topic. Not on this one. So, out of all your experience, you worked in wargaming the most, like plus 5 years, and you said you realized the importance of IP back then. And I see that
Yeah,
you left wargaming around December 2019, but you started the company Mad Crusader in 2022. Like, but
yeah.
when did you have the idea of starting the company?
Well, that was a process because after Wargaming, I became the director of the video games school. I went back from Cyprus to Moscow, and okay, people from one university invited me to make the video game development school. And it was a bachelor's degree program. It's not just an online course, it's a serious educational stuff. And while researching and designing the education program, I made some findings, about the underlying problems. I would say industry-wide problems, meaning that, for example, problems like everyone wants new IPs, but everyone knows that that's risky, and virtually no one invests in new IPs. But then again, so it's like a vicious circle, but you don't do it, but then you want it, but you still don't do it, and stuff like that. And then some other findings like that the industry needs, those IPs and the teams, or at least the leaders, creative leaders who can run them. You may call it like the showrunners on the TV side of things. You need the same kind of people to run the game IPs. You may call it game directors or IP directors. And the educational system, like the mainstream education system, is normally busy with producing the junior level specialists and not IPs with IP directors, right? So that's something that I noticed. And then I made some other findings, about how even in those rare instances where people invest in new IPs, what maybe insufficiencies are there, in that process, because people very easily, and that's totally understandable, people very easily get taken away by the creative process. And even though it's a huge part, like it has to be a creative process, but there's a lot of other things that need to be taken in consideration, right? So
Mhm.
there's a big difference between the a funny character, the cool story, and the entertainment IP. There's just the different scale, and those are just different things. Like and most of the times, people focus on storytelling or visuals and don't ask themselves the very important question in the very beginning of the design process, which we articulate as like, what will we do if this project is success? That sounds a little bit strange to ask yourself this question, because, like, it's a nice problem to have to be a successful game or a successful IP, right? But One of my favorite examples is, the statistics work for everyone. It's like normally in the games industry, people tend to say that it's about like 20-1 ratio. Like you need to launch 20 projects to have one successful.
No.
It's kind of average, but kind of seems kind of right. And so that statistics works for everyone. And it's an enormous amount of effort that needs to be spent and focused to make any project successful. And what you don't want is that you don't want to find yourself when you spend all this effort and it works out for you. For example, in terms of the number of copies sold, right? Or let's say you are commercially successful project, but then you don't want to find yourself in a situation like, for example, do you know the game called Journey, or one of the best indie games
No.
in the history of indie games? It was released, I believe, on almost all platforms, at least on PC and consoles. And I believe our audience knows the game called Journey. And it was hugely successful in terms of number of copies sold. But if you look at it from the entertainment IP point of view, what it is, even visually, it is a story about two black triangles floating over the yellow texture. Right. So you can't make a movie about two black triangles floating over the yellow texture. You can't make action figures, out of two black triangles. You can't even do the stickers, because and you don't want to spend all that effort to come to the point where your project is successful, but then there is no scaling to it, right?
Okay. So it's the tipping point,
Yeah, that's interesting, because some people will say, I don't care about scaling, I just want to be, artistic and popular as the rest. And that's fair. I mean, like, some people don't want to become, let's say, Disney, right? Or Warner, or Blizzard. They just want to produce cool stories. But what we are focusing at is people who want to create commercially successful and scalable entertainment franchises.
Okay.
And that's an interesting point. And it's
So
very detailed. Yeah.
Two things here. So not everything can be an IP, right? We should, like, when we talk about the IP, okay, intellectual property, are we talking about the commercial possibilities, or yes, the two black triangle, whatever, cannot have an action figure or a movie, so it cannot be an IP. So for you, what is the definition of that?
That's a great question. So, well, IP stands for intellectual property, right? So anything can be intellectual property. The character in your game can be intellectual property, and is, by the way, right? If it's published, or if it's specially protected otherwise. So our definition, right, is as follows. We believe that in order to build, let's say, $1 billion company in the entertainment industry, you need a portfolio of entertainment franchises that could be distributed through different media types, right? Think of, let's say, Star Wars universe, right? There is a Star Wars universe, and then there are Star Wars movies, Star Wars games, Star Wars everything, like Lego Star Wars, and you name it, right? Everywhere. And so there's the difference between so this entertainment cross-media franchise is, in this example, this is the Star Wars universe. And then there are IPs on the, if you cascade it down a little bit, right? So this universe is a franchise, and this franchise consists of IPs. Let's say the movie IP, the game IP, the comics IP, and whatever, the books. And so there is a challenge of, like, if you start from scratch, right? You want to put this cross-media franchise potential into this new project that you are developing, even though there is nothing, like you start from scratch, you don't have anything. and you, for example, want to create the game, and if you want to make it scalable, and if you want to raise the chances of the success of this project, you need to look at it through the lenses of which setting it belongs to, which genre it belongs to, how the best examples in this setting and genre look like, what they do, what they offer. Because what best examples show you is that what your target audience is expecting from the games of this type, right? Or from the products of this type. Because the highly successful products, they kind of a little bit educate the market. They form their expectation from any other following product, right? So you need to pay attention to these things. So in our system, we have this, let's say, the different layers of, how you call it, three levels of intellectual property: the cross-media franchise at the top, IP in the middle, and the IP concept at the bottom. So you start with the IP concept, you develop it into the new IP, and then if the chance and your homework and marketing all comes together, then this new IP has a chance to transform into the cross-media franchise. So that's kind of the three-layered cake, I would call it.
Yeah. But so you're saying, okay, if I want to develop a game, that like before even developing, when you're doing the game design process, the company, if they want the $1 billion possibility, should come up with IP opportunities from the commercial side. Like these can be books, movies, action figures, whatever, right? And if it's not, it doesn't mean that it cannot be a $1 billion company, but it has some limitations. On what stage do companies come to you? Like before making the games, or after, like the game is already being successful and they're like kind of okay?
Yeah, so we start from scratch, right? So we attract people. First of all, like we offer the full cycle of IP development, from ideation to development and publishing, and then licensing further down the road, right? So because we need to make sure that our framework is implemented on every stage, right? And so basically, we could be interesting for mostly three types of partners or participants. First is aspiring creative leaders, right? For these people, we have our IP incubation program. We teach them to basically formulate ideas in a way that makes it possible to convert them into a successful commercial entertainment product, right? Because like good idea is a good idea. The commercial entertainment product concept is very much different from just a fun idea, or cool story even. Yeah. So that's first kind of category of people who we're dealing with. Second is that we have a different approach to production, right? So the first batch of our incubation program finished in the May of this year, and now we have a portfolio of new IP concepts that at this point we are pushing it to production, right? And we approach production in a different way, because normally what you would see in the industry, people tend to believe that, well, basically that's the person who came up with the idea is the same person who will make sure that the idea will be implemented into, in the form of the high quality entertainment product. And that's just not the case. Like, that's not true, because not everyone who is good in coming up with ideas and even articulating them, who is very talented, like visionary, is most likely not the person who will be, executive producer of the high quality entertainment product. And then what everybody does is that they kind of close their eyes and start to convince themselves that no, this will work. We will just believe that the person who came up with the idea will develop the product. And most of the times, I mean, like most of the times, it just doesn't happen, right? And what we say is that okay, let's look at Hollywood, where people kind of have a combination in order to have a successful project. They have a combination of a script writer, the script itself, right, and the production partner who has a proven track record of developing this certain types of content, right, in this genre or in this category. And they have like decades of history in producing this specific type of content, whether it is like rich in computer graphics or it is very, atmospheric or whatever. You have production companies for any sort of for any type of visual content. And so what we do, we partner with co-development and outsource gaming companies who have a proven track record of like delivering high quality titles right to the market, and we connect them with the trained by us game director and their IP concept and teach them to talk to each other, and so our approach is like what is most likely to happen, that the person who never did anything in regards of content creation will succeed in a couple of years in creating the whatever AAA project in terms of quality of production, or it is most likely that if you have someone who is trained to kind of to manage the IP as an intellectual property and entertainment product, if you have a quality IP concept that is screened versus the market expectations, versus the competitive situation landscape, versus the technological trends and consumption habits of the audience, and plus you have a production partner who is experienced in producing specifically these types of contents. For example, if you're doing a third person PvP action, then you have a partner who has a track record of producing the third person PvP action games, right? If you're producing the real-time strategy or top-down action RPG, then you have a production partner who has a track record of producing real-time strategies or top-down action RPGs. So that's kind of deal.
So
and then
you're training the IP directors, and you have already a list of developers who has a track record, and then you already start the process from the beginning, that the $1 billion ideas are generated in the incubation, and you have the fund to support that, right? Like 30 million.
We do the fundraising,
Yeah.
and our plan is to, like, our model says that we have this first portfolio, and the idea is also that it's not just, you're not just randomly generating new IPs just for the sake of, I mean, like, it's a complex topic. I mean, the target audience is a very important question here, right? Because like when you talk games, let's take a step back to help our listeners to understand on which landscape we're operating. So when this conversation about like how mobile games are not games, and this type of thing, and this never-ending struggle, like should games be like only premium or free to play, and is microtransactions fair, is loot boxes gambling or not, and all that kind of thing. And can you consider people who play, let's say, Gardenscapes the same gamers as people who play Grand Theft Auto? So we think that, well, technically all of that is games, but there are differences in the target audience, right? So if you have like the middle-aged or housewives who are interested in casual games, that's fine. Those are also games, but that's a very specific target audience. If you have like bored office workers who are interested in browser-based games because it's convenient to to play them on your office computer and then like hide it behind other windows, then that's fine. But that's a very specific audience, right? And the audience that we are targeting, I would call it the geeks and hardcore gamers. And if you want to like see what that means in terms of their content preferences, you can go to Metacritic top 100, Metacritic top 100 of all time and all platforms, and you can see the list of 100 games that are there and kind of understand what types of content are required and what themes and topics and settings are required to address this target audience. And you will see that it is sci-fi, it is fantasy and dark fantasy, it is cyberpunk, and a little bit of action and heroic adventure, and post-apocalyptic stuff. So it is very clear, and we defined like 12 genres or 12 settings that resonate well with this target audience. And this list of 12, we literally have it on our website, it's not a secret. This list of 12 categories of content, like post-apocalyptic, like anti-utopia and sci-fi and fantasy and dark fantasy, and
this is what the market needs.
Yeah, that's basically what you need to do if you want to succeed, right? Those are the topics you need to choose from if you want to see, because that's what the winners are doing. I mean, like if you look at the top companies, you want to look at Disney, you want to look at Warner Bros, you want to look at Blizzard. If you will look at their portfolio, I mean, companies who can address the same market. Because if you will look at Zynga, for example, back in the day, you'll have a completely different picture.
They have a Game of Thrones version coming in one of their games right now. Actually, you were mentioning the winners right now. So let me ask, like, what are the successful IPs that you see for the last 5 years?
Yeah, that depends on the scale. Like, obviously, I think like the easiest answer will be Marvel, right? Yeah. Because it was a fantastic story of, they had no guarantee for success. Now everyone's trying to make the point that, yeah, well, that's obvious if you have,
characters and superhero
characters and everything, that there's kind of no-brainer that you will be successful. But then, like, you have the, let's say, just beside Marvel, you have a DC example, and DC is still struggling. I mean, I should ask DC fans to forgive me because they believe that this is the best thing ever. But in comparison to Marvel universe, DC is still struggling, in figuring out how to bring the franchise to this medium, like of movies and games. And don't understand me wrong, like they have huge examples of huge success, but the Marvel story seems to be way more consistent, right, in terms of like the releases and the results of those releases and the consistency of success. So, but that's a huge story, and I think that people can just get blown away. But yeah, okay, we're talking about Marvel, I never will have a chance to do something like that, things of that nature.
You don't have to be Marvel, I guess. There's like a lot of medium level IPs as well. It's Marvel is just
like, but that's just a cool example. That's a very good example of how you get something to look at, to dig in, to see like what people, how they approach different problems and solve them creatively. And then there are some middle level examples. There is example of, let's say, Atomic Heart. You heard about this title. That's a complete surprise for everyone. And I must say that Atomic Heart is one of the examples of how people on a scale of the single product basically doing pretty much what we're doing on a scale of the portfolio of products.
Okay.
Right. So we have very similar understanding of what's important and how you build the, let's say, the universe, this fictional universe, how then you pick the right medium for that, right? Because you can design any number of fictional universes. Unless you have a product, there's no chance you will have traction, commercial wise, right?
It's a good level of
So
comparison with what you are developing, Atomic Heart.
yeah, Atomic Heart is a very good example of how you basically do the IP development the way it needs to be done in 21st century, right?
Okay.
That's like, if you are ambitious, right? And ambitious creatively and ambitious commercially, that's very important, because there are people, and I'm not advocating for everyone to become a billionaire, because like that will be boring, because like the
If
industry is
everyone is a
beautiful.
billionaire, yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, like the beauty of the industry, it's very like the music industry back in the day, at least, because you have all kinds of projects, all kinds of creative people who, some are interested in commercial success, some don't even think about commercial success, but they're super brilliant and they create, just amazing projects that may or may not be scaled as a cross-media franchise, but nevertheless there's a niche for like and a place for every approach. The approach that we're advocating for is for people who have creative and commercial ambition, right? So if you're in the artistic side of the things, please don't listen to me. You will be just
this,
disappointed
this
and
is a very
depressed.
commercial video.
Yeah,
This is a very,
yeah.
very commercial video right now. Video and podcast. Yeah. Then I mean, my next question would be like do's and don'ts when it comes to IP development, because you already gave a good example, like what like people like what IP look like a successful IP, like Atomic Heart.
Mhm.
So some key points of do and don't.
Yeah, again, reminding everyone that we're talking about a situation where you have commercial and creative ambitions, right? So if you have that, and if you want to build a billion-dollar company in entertainment industry in this situation, and this situation, I mean, like, let's not forget that we are kind of in the AI era, right? And we're not talking about like the artificial intelligence and robots that will conquer the humanity. It's not about that. It's about the speed of production of content, right? And the ease of production of content, and those technologies that are constantly evolving, and it's like evident. I mean, it became self-evident from about the time of pandemic and lockdowns, when you started to hear news. I think first it was like every 3 months, then every 2 months, then every 1 month, and now I mean, basically every week you have a news about some new technology that is about to replace some kind of profession, or even some part of the entertainment industry. I mean, with human involvement, right? And so what it tells us is that the entertainment industry in general, I mean, like entertainment industry, let's narrow it to audiovisual interactive entertainment, right? So it's like movies, animation, video games, so like digital art type of thing. So what it means for our industry is that we will go through the same process that the mainstream media went through during the time of social media. Because before social media, you had your editorial team, you would be writing, deeply thought through articles and fancy yourself with the, let's say, reputation of a thought leader, opinion leader, and you have your own style, and your whole media has, like their positioning and differentiators and stuff like that. And then social media kicks in, and you find yourself in a situation where creating and distributing content is like as easy as to think about it, right? You don't even you don't need to print it, you don't need to distribute it, you just need to open your laptop or open your phone, and here you are. And you have billions of people producing billions of pieces of content every day, and the amount of this free, and I remind you, like, that this user-generated content is free and it is very low quality. And what it does to the industry, and what it will do to our industry, is the same thing it did to the media industry. right? It will raise the requirement for the quality of the content that you are creating, because literally everyone will be able to create any type of content, right? And it will be
Yeah.
low quality, it will be free, it will be like everywhere, and the amounts of that quality will be just astronomical, right? And so the pressure on the, let's say, professional content creators then becomes like how you manage the quality, first of all, and then second of all, the pressure on investors then becomes like where you want to invest, because before that you could easily plan like, okay, next 10 years I will be investing in movies, or next 10 years I will be investing in video games on this specific platform, let's say on like consoles, right, or PC or mobile. With this speed of technology development, you may have different types of content and different types of distribution and consumption of this content appear like on a quarterly basis, right? And so as an investor, you will find yourself in a situation that, hey, we just invested into whatever, NFTs, right, or video games, or this or that. But then 3 months later, and it takes, I remind you, it takes like at least 2 years to develop something meaningful in terms of, digital entertainment product. You have to wait all that time. And with the current speed of the technology development, you may very well, as an investor, you can find yourself in a situation where you invested into one type of content. You need to wait for like a couple of years for it to be developed and published and then monetized. But while you wait these 2 years, the technological trends changed like 8 times, and no
True.
one cares about the type of content that you invested in previously, and how how you take yourself out of that situation. And I think that this is very important for people who invest in entertainment to like really come to the understanding that the importance of like focusing the cross media entertainment franchises is the safest way for them to like owning the rights to the cross media entertainment franchise is something that can solve this complexity, because like if you own the rights to the cross media entertainment franchise, you don't care, like the Disney, they don't care what type of content will be popular next, because like everyone, well, like one of my friends say, the grand prize for the technology race winner will be the exclusive right and privilege to come to the IP owners for the content licenses, right, and to pay for them, right? So
True.
yeah, so from investors' perspective, it is very important to focus on the owning the rights to the cross media franchises. And if you want to be like, if you are a developer, or if you are like any type of creative person, again with commercial and creative ambitions, you want to target, you want to build something that investors will want, and investors will want cross media franchises, right? And there's a way, because before we articulated our framework, it was almost like, it would be nice to do that, but no one knew how to do that. And we believe that we figured how we can shortcut and how we can get to basically simultaneously designing and producing and publishing the product, but embedding the cross media franchise potential into this product, so that if the product is successful, then this cross media franchise potential unlocks or unpacks further down the road, right? And you don't find yourself in the situation of the
Yeah. So
journey.
investors should definitely look at the IP rights and the
And
possibility of
the trick
expanding.
for investors is like, that's kind of not a very unique idea, that investors need to focus on cross media franchises, because like every
Mhm.
investor will understand that. The problem is that to focus on cross media franchises, you have like basically two options. You need to establish a company and wait for like 80 years, like Disney, right? And then if you're lucky, in 80 or 100 years, you have a amazing portfolio of cross media franchises. That's not for everyone. I don't think that investors are willing to wait for 80
Wait that
years.
long, yeah.
Yeah. Or you can, the other option is that you can try to buy something like Disney, which is like also a very narrow,
Apple
of
was
people
going to buy
in
Disney, no?
companies. Yeah, good for them.
Almost. Don't know whatever.
Yeah, but again, we you can count the number of the companies that can do such things on like fingers of one hand, right? And we're talking about thousands and thousands of creative collectives and teams that
Yeah.
need to have a chance for success, right? And we believe that our approach is a kind of the middle path between those two extremes, like waiting for 800 years, 80 years, or spending $80 billion to buy something,
Yeah.
like that. So our approach is that, yeah, it could be done differently. It could be done like faster, a lot faster than 80 years. You can see the first results in 2 years and then build on that. And by the time you hit year 6 or 7, you can have your billion-dollar
Yes.
company,
Yeah.
right? And in terms of investments, you can start with as low as 30 million instead of hundreds of billions of dollars,
Yeah.
buying something huge.
Then let me ask my final question to wrap
Yeah.
up. So anyone, I mean, we'll put the link so anyone who is interested on IP development will check on you and then see if they can join your incubation program. But let's say they are not joining and they have a plan to build an IP right now. Like they want to do an IP business at some level, through games, through books, through movies, whatever. Because I guess when you have an IP, you can start from one channel, and then as you said, like you can transition to other channels, and you become an entertainment company, right? Not just like book, movie, or games, but an entire multi-channel company. So anyone who is entering the IP business right now, what is your number one advice?
Yeah, my number one advice is ask yourself, and give yourself a really honest answer. What is most important to you to deliver your personal statement, or to do something that people will love to have, right? Because that's a very interesting, that's something that we see all the time during the incubation program, during my career. And that's basically, you may call it market orientation or like player orientation, right? A lot of, especially creative people, especially very creative people, and that's like the biggest struggle of creative people in general. Like they see those beautiful things that no one else sees, right? And they get super excited about that, and then they fall in love with their ideas, right? And then at some point in time, especially if they have a character, like a strong character, they start to be assertive and, let's say, I would call it even stubborn in a way that kind of prevents them from understanding, like, yeah, maybe the initial idea was cool, but in order for it to become a successful commercial product, you need to listen to people who, like, you need to define where is the group of people who love and expect projects like the one that you have. And then you need to kind of listen very attentively to this group of people, of like, what are their expectations, what the previous projects taught them to expect, right? Because like it's a very complex thing. Like the successful products that were released before your product, they, besides being successful products and making a lot of money and making a lot of fuss in the media, they also teach people to expect certain things, right, from this type. Because, for example, if you now try to do, some sci-fi TV series, it's almost impossible to get away from starships of certain forms and some kind of like teleportation technology and some kind of blasters, or beam weapons and things of that nature, and even things like the expected types of aliens on different planets. And that's all, like, that's not something that happened, because people kind of know what types of aliens are there. That all happened because, like, the successful products in this genre, they teach the audience that, you need a starship, you need some kind of convenient teleportation or like whatever transportation technology, because otherwise you will be spending like pages and pages and minutes of your time inside your content to explain how people got from the starship to the surface of the planet, right? And how
Listen
they
your
fight,
audience.
how they shoot. Yeah, so you need to
Lis-
listen to the audience, you need to collect all those things, and you need to have an answer like, do you have everything that people expect from this category of products? Yes or no? And then besides that, you need to add the innovation on top, right?
well,
Because like
then
and people feel it's very hard on people, like on creative people, because when you say them you need to investigate and study and research every important competitor in your field and see what they have invented, what is the cool stuff that people love about those games, and you need to implement it in a way, like synthesize something about that, like or have the likes of that in your product. A lot of creative people feel like almost insulted, and they feel like, yeah, I can't do anything that was already done before me, like it's
yeah.
a personal insult, and that's a wrong way to go. You need
So
to what people want.
for summarizing, it's listen audience, listen your audience, listen what how the successful people have done before you and the people who know their industry. So then
Yeah, I remember,
that,
and remember about the difference between commercial product and piece of art. Those are
yeah,
different things.
those are different. All right. Well, yeah, thank you so much. This was very insightful on IP development, very important and in today's industry. Like anyone who has the IP right now has, I think, endless opportunities. As you said, like the content creation is becoming much easier, but anyone who has an IP has endless opportunities on different channels. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting.